Our next installment deals with signal phrases, and a signal phrase is just simply the language that you use to introduce a quote in your essay. Usually you'll do this to introduce a quote as evidence. But it doesn't matter philosophically, right? When we're writing academic papers, MLA asks that you do not begin a sentence with quotation marks. The logic is that you're supposed to introduce the quote ahead of time to provide context for the reader for the quote. And it makes perfect sense. So we don't start with quote marks. We always introduce what's going to be in the quote with something simple or complicated if you want to. I've given you a few examples here on the screen, and I want to cover a few items about these signal phrases. First of all, we're using the literary present tense. Let's look at the first example. The author notes. Okay. What I have here is a simple signal phrase. I will use a comma before the direct quote. I will give the quote in quotation marks. And then in this case, you give the page number of the quote inside the parentheses, and you end the sentence after the parentheses with a period. Okay. There are other things that can factor into this, but I want to be clear that MLA is very simple. You don't ever have to do this in MLA. You don't have to put PP in there or anything like that. It's just the page number that's really required. If the reader understands who the author is and what the article is, the title of it, all you need is the page number. Okay. In the second example, this author, let's say he has two pieces that we're referring to in our works cited. So we're using two articles by him. One's called Enlightenment and the other one's called Enchantment. So the reader might get confused by that, and I have to clarify that in the citation. Now, the signal phrase, again, is very simple. He writes. You have a comma before the direct quotation. You give the quotation, and now, just to clarify, to refer to the works cited page, for the reader's sake, okay, this is the source, you would put the title of the article in quotes and then the page number it's found on. If you have a long title, you use the first three words only. That's it. It's just to give a direct arrow from the body of your essay to the works cited page, and it's like showing the reader, like, okay, this is what it is. Now you can look at the works cited page and you can find it. And then finally, sometimes, right, I'm going to have a little longer signal phrase. Fuentes clarifies his thinking in the following quote. You'll notice here that I begin, right, I have a colon before the parentheses. So what makes a difference? And it's really simple. In these two cases up here, I say the author notes, but I don't have a complete sentence because I don't have an object. Same thing, he writes. Well, what did he write? To whom did he write? We don't know that, right, until we have this information. So you use a comma after a signal phrase if you do not have a complete sentence to the left of the quote. But if you have a complete sentence, and that's the rule for following, for use of a colon. Fuentes clarifies what? Subject, verb, his thinking. I have every element, subject, verb, object, for a complete sentence. So if you do that, then the colon will come before the quote itself. And actually, that's the only rule that you'll need to worry about for a colon in the body of an essay. A colon can only come after a complete sentence, and it's not that hard. All right. So here again, I used enchantment to clarify the title and page number. All right. So check out your signal phrases and your citations. Make sure that when you're citing that the period will come after the parentheses, right? If you're just giving a regular quote, and you don't have a citation to make, you can say something like this. In these cases, the period always goes inside quote marks. And that's a rule that comes from the typewriter days that we made up, where we argue that anything with one keystroke will always go inside the quote mark, right? And that's true. It never changes. Here, is a perfect example. But if you give a citation, then you would just wait until the citation is over, right, to end the sentence that way. All right, happy editing.